Welcome students. In my last video, I have already discussed the first 8 lines of composed upon Westminster Bridge. I think you have well understood the poem, that means the first 8 lines. In this video, I am going to discuss the last 6 lines of the poem. Before going to the last 6 lines, we will recapitulate the first 8 lines, what we have already learned in the last video. One early morning, the poet was crossing the Westminster Bridge for Dover in a tonga with his sister Dorothy. Then the poet experienced a never seen and never felt London in its morning beauty. He thought that the city was the fairest of all things on the earth. One who would not care of the beauty would be dull in heart. The city wore a garment of beauty so touchingly gorgeous. The ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples that remain usually busy were silent and bare between the fields and the sky. Everything was bright and glittering in the smokeless air. So, this was the first 8 lines of the poem. Now, move on to the last 6 lines. Never did sun more beautifully steep in its first splendor, valley, rock, or hill. What does the poet want to mean? The sun appears in the morning eastern sky. The sun transforms all objects by its flood of light. The rising sun lends a splendor and a glory to the scene of nature. When it falls on a valley, a rock, or a hill, they look extremely beautiful. Such a strange beauty appeals at once to the poet's heart. A lover of nature understands this to the most beautiful sight, to be the most beautiful sight. But in the poet's eye, the beauty of the sun of the city of London at dawn surpasses all fair sights in nature. Even valleys and hills have never gained such a magnificent look at dawn as the city of London on this particular day. অর্থাৎ ওই বিশেষ দিনের সকালে যে সৌন্দর্যটা, লন্ডন শহরে যে সৌন্দর্যটা কবি দেখেছেন, সেটা কিন্তু প্রকৃতির কোনো কিছুর সঙ্গেই তুলনা করা যায় না। এই সৌন্দর্যটা সব কিছুকেই ছাপিয়ে গিয়েছে। Everything is glittering brightly in the smokeless air. The atmosphere is calm and quiet. Bathed in the first splendor of the sun, London casts a hypnotic spell upon the poet. So, by comparing the beauty of London with that of a valley, rock, or hill lit up by the first rays of the sun, the poet shows the superiority of the beauty of London. So here the poet is bold enough to claim that the objects of the city flooded by the bright sun rays look more beautiful than any other thing in nature. অর্থাৎ এই লন্ডন শহরের সকালে যে সৌন্দর্য সেদিন কবি যা দেখেছিলেন সেটা কিন্তু প্রকৃতির সমস্ত সৌন্দর্যকেই ছাপিয়ে যায়। নেক্সট লাইন, নেভার স আই, নেভার ফেল্ট আ কাম সো ডিপ। নেভার স আই, নেভার ফেল্ট a calm so deep. In the last line, that means in his first splendor, valley, rock or hill, look at the first word, in his first splendor, his. Here the poet uses personification. Actually, his refers to the sun, and he describes the sun as a human being. The poet uses personification in this line. Now the third line, never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The poet says that the sun has never shone more beautifully on the valleys, rocks or hills as it does this morning. But he actually means that the sun is at its best in beautifying nature on this day. Bathed in the rays of the morning sun, everything in the city of London looks charming. So the poet describes it exquisitely. The silence in the morning is intensely deep because the whole city is now at rest. People are still in bed. There is no noise. It is the profound calm just before the beginning of a busy day. The poet wants to mean this by a calm so deep. The next line, the river glideth at its own sweet will. The river. The name of the river mentioned in this poem is the Thames. And in this section, the poet again uses personification. Look at the word, his own sweet will, his. Here the river is described as a patient man, a patient person who is not at all in a hurry. He takes time and moves according to his own sweet will. And by this line, the poet means that the river Thames flows freely. It is not disturbed by the ships and the sailors. At this hour of the morning, there is nothing to disturb the natural flow of the river. A profound calmness pervades the whole city. The picture of undisturbed Thames adds to the beauty of the silence. Next line, dear God, the very houses seem asleep. Dear God, there is an exclamation mark. Here the poet addresses God. And the address to God is full of exclamation and expresses the heartfelt joy and satisfaction of the poet, visualizing the natural and untainted beauty of the London in the early morning. And all these are the God's blessing to the poet. That's why the poet has used exclamation mark here. The very houses seem asleep. The atmosphere in the morning is very quiet. No sound comes from the house of London, as the people are still sleeping. So the houses appear to be asleep. The atmosphere of peace and tranquility fills the poet with joy. The very houses seems asleep. Here the poet uses personification as he describes the houses as asleep. Actually, it is early morning and the people inside the houses are sleeping. So here the houses are personified. And now the very last line of the poem. And all that mighty heart is lying still. The mighty heart. The London of 1802 was quite different. The city of London was not taken as separate from the surrounding countryside. The city was considered to be the heart of the city. London, the capital of the country and the main center of the energy, is compared to the heart. And what does the poet want to mean by the line? The activities of the day have not started yet. The vehicles are not found plying. Ships and boats are not sailing in the river. The temples, theaters, domes look lonely. The factories of the city are not emitting smoke from the chimneys. Furthermore, the people are still sleeping inside their houses. Therefore, the city loses its usual look of din and bustle and a noisy atmosphere full of dust and smoke. It seems it has no movement. At this time, it appears to the poet that the heart of the body is still lying before the city awakens for a new day. Here the word heart probably refers to the energy, vitality, and the spirits of the city. So, this is the last 6 lines of the poem. What we have learnt in this part of the poem? That the valley, rock, or hill look unique in the first splendor of the sun. But the beauty of the city of London in the morning, experienced by the poet, surpasses it all. এই সব কিছুকে কিন্তু কবি যে শহরের যে সকালের লন্ডন সিটিকে দেখছেন সেগুলোকে ছাপিয়ে যায়। The calmness of the city was too deep to imagine. The river Thames glided in its own sweet will. without any impediment from the ships. The poet was thankful to the god for giving him the opportunity to enjoy the beauty of the silent city. Now we will see what does the poet want to mean by the poem. এই কবিতার দ্বারা কবি কি বোঝাতে চেয়েছেন? Wordsworth, a lover of beauty, nature's devotee, and a high priest, finds beauty of God both in nature and human beings. So London, inhabited by lots of people, seems to him beautiful in its calmness and quietness in the early morning. Here London is presented not as a commercial city, but a symbol of serenity and solitude surrounded by beautiful nature. So the normal look of London with its utmost beauty, utmost busy and clumsy appearance is not the subject of the poem. But in the morning, when everything is covered by the morning splendor and blaze, Wordsworth describes that beauty in his poem. Now we will discuss the poem composed upon Westminster Bridge as a sonnet. What is a sonnet? A sonnet is a poem of 14 lines. And a traditional sonnet, that is a Petrarchan or Italian sonnet, has two divisions. Number one, octave, and number two, sestet. What is octave? Octave is the first 8 lines of the poem. And what is sestet? Sestet is the last 6 lines of the poem. In this poem, upon the Westminster Bridge, the poet Wordsworth celebrates the beauty of the city London in an early morning. Unlike the conventional love theme of sonnet, the poet here expresses his worship for the calm and silent natural beauty of the city of London. In the octave, the beauty of the city is described with the help of personifications and metaphorical comparisons. The earth, the city of London, are personified as human beings wearing the garment of beauty. And in the sestet part, the poet expresses his never felt feeling for the unique beauty of the city. He is grateful to God for allowing him the opportunity to enjoy the exceptional gorgeousness of the city. So, this lyrical poem is a Petrarchan sonnet in style. Now we will see how does the poet describe the beauty of London in the poem. কীভাবে এই কবিতাটিতে কবি লন্ডন শহরের সৌন্দর্যটাকে বর্ণনা করেছেন সেটা আমরা দেখে নেব। The poet Wordsworth was a worshipper of nature. His experience of a beautiful morning when he was crossing the Westminster Bridge prompted him to write this poem. The tranquil city charms the poet by its appearance. There was no hurly-burly, hue and cry, din and bustle of the usual London. Now, the city was dressed in the beautiful garment of morning beauty. It is silent and bare. The ships, towers, domes, theatres, temples, all the busy places lay open between the earth and the sky. Everything looked bright and glittering in the smokeless air. The beauty of the city was further enhanced by the steep sun scattering its splendor over valley, rock, and hill. The poet had never seen and felt so deep calmness of the city. The gentle flow of the river Thames added to beautify the city more and more. Thus, the asleep city impressed upon the poet too deep to avoid. It was only a dull-headed simpleton who would be indifferent to the magnificent city London. It was a unique and exceptional, gorgeous experience of the appearance of the city. So this was the last 6 lines of composed upon Westminster Bridge. I think you have all understood the poem clearly.